My name is Steven. I'm 51, a former Special Forces operative who spent 12 years in the field before starting over in Denver. The young man across from me is Jake, 27, a gym trainer who believes muscle equals power. And between us stands Diana, the woman who will ignite a war neither of us can walk away from. The gym smelled of iron and sweat, that sharp metallic tang that never really left the air no matter how many disinfectant sprays the staff used. Powerflex Gym on a weeknight was always the same. Rows of treadmills humming, dumbbells clattering onto rubber mats, laughter from college kids chasing the illusion of strength in front of the mirrors. To most people, this place was a temple of youth, of energy, of bodies sculpted to show off under neon lights. But for me, tonight, it was an arena. I stood in the doorway, heavy boots on polished floors, and felt 40 pairs of eyes flicker toward me before returning to their routines. To them, I was just another middle-aged man checking in on his workout. But to one person in particular, the young man swaggering toward me, I was something else entirely. Jake Rodriguez, 25, trainer. 3 months into my wife's life. 3 months into my marriage in ways I had yet to put into words. He spotted me and grinned, that cocky grin young men wear when they've never been tested by anything real. He moved through the crowd with a chest puffed out, a predator in his own small kingdom. His arms bulged with effort, veins raised like rivers on a map. He had the kind of body Instagram worships. And tonight, he wanted a show. "Walk out before I embarrass you, old man," he said, voice loud enough to cut through the clatter of plates and the bass-heavy gym music. The crowd turned. Phones came out. I could see the smirks forming, the whispers starting. Older husband versus younger trainer, the algorithm would eat this up. They wanted blood, humiliation, the story they could tell their friends later. I was there when it happened. Jake kept walking toward me, feeding on the attention. "You're not man enough for her," he continued. "Everyone knows it. Diana knows it." His voice rang with confidence, the kind of confidence only someone who's never seen combat, never tasted real fear, can have. The name cut deep, sharper than the insults. My wife. My Diana. I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I walked calmly to a bench and sat down. The leather of my boots creaked as I bent forward. I started untying the laces, slow, deliberate, as though I had all the time in the world. Jake misread the silence. They always do. He thought I was afraid. Weak. Retreating into the quiet dignity of a man too old to fight back. The crowd thought the same, their murmurs rippling like a tide. He stepped closer. I could see his reflection in the wall-length mirror, posing for himself as much as for the audience. "Diana told me all about you," he said, letting each word drip like poison. "How you've gone soft. How you don't take care of yourself anymore." Laughter broke from a corner of the gym. Someone whispered, "This is gonna be good." The phones rose higher. I pulled off my right boot and set it beside me. The floor was cold under my sock. I went for the left one, fingers moving slowly, deliberately, as though none of this mattered. But inside, my chest was steady, calm. A calm honed through 12 years of Special Forces training, the kind of calm that lives in the eye of a storm. Jake thought this was a game. He thought muscles equaled strength, swagger equaled power, youth equaled superiority. But strength, the real kind, was patience, timing, choosing the right moment, and making sure that when it came, there would be no mistakes. The gym was holding its breath now. The clash was inevitable. They didn't realize it yet, but the outcome had already been written the moment Jake opened his mouth and made this public. I finished loosening the laces and looked up at him for the first time, meeting his eyes with the weight of every year, every battle, every scar he couldn't see. "You done talking, son?" I asked, voice calm, even. The crowd stilled. Phones zoomed in. Jake smirked, interpreting my quiet as a crack in the dam. He had no idea. The confrontation hadn't even started yet. Diana wasn't always this way. When I first met her 15 years ago, she carried herself with the kind of confidence that could disarm a room. Bank manager at 30, tailored suits that sharpened her edges, and a smile that made even the angriest clients melt into compliance. I'd just come out of the military back then, raw from deployments, still carrying the ghosts of Kandahar and Basra on my shoulders. I didn't know what to do with myself in civilian life, but Diana, she made the world feel structured, possible. 2 years later, we were married. We bought a house in Highlands Ranch, filled it with the kind of plans every couple makes. Maybe kids, maybe trips abroad, maybe just long summers in the Colorado sun. She liked security, stability. I provided it. Or at least I thought I did. But patterns change. Always. In the military, you learn to recognize when a village goes quiet before an ambush. When a familiar road suddenly has fresh tire tracks. Small details that mean the difference between making it home or never leaving at all. Civilian life isn't combat, but patterns tell the truth here too. Diana's patterns had been shifting for months. At first, it was small things. Longer hours at the gym, though her muscles didn't change much. New clothes that hugged her curves more than her usual office wear. Perfume a shade stronger than she ever needed for a simple workout. And her voice, distance crept into it, like she was reciting lines instead of talking about her day. When I asked once, gently, she smiled with that dismissive ease women perfect over a lifetime. Midlife goals, she said. I just want to feel strong again. And I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But belief is not the same as truth. Jake's name arrived in my life like a whisper. First as just the new trainer at the gym. Then, Jake says this exercise is better. Then, late-night texts she swore were about workout schedules. He was a shadow at first, then a constant presence. And here's the thing about shadows, they only exist when something is blocking the light. I could feel it then. Something was blocking ours. I'd spent years watching insurgents probe defenses, mapping out weak spots before striking. Jake was doing the same thing, he just didn't know I could see it. Every time Diana mentioned his name, every shift in her tone, every unexplained delay home, it was intelligence gathering. And I'd been trained my whole life to recognize an enemy moving in on my position. But what cut deeper than the suspicion was the silence between us. The dinners where she put her phone face down. The mornings she rushed out without kissing me goodbye. The laughter that used to echo in our kitchen, gone. Replaced by routine. Distance. Absence disguised as busyness. The truth wasn't in what she said. It was in what she stopped saying. And that silence, it spoke louder than anything Jake ever could. Jake Rodriguez. If you asked him who he was, he'd tell you he was a fitness professional. A trainer. A motivator. A man who changed lives. The kind of hollow slogans men his age wrap around themselves to hide the fact that they don't know who they are yet. To the young women at the gym, he was magnetic. Smooth talk. Easy smile. The confidence of someone who'd never lost anything worth bleeding for. He was the type who believed charisma was the same thing as character. But I knew better. In Special Forces, we studied opponents before we ever pulled a trigger. You watch them. You learn how they move, how they eat, how they sleep. Jake wasn't hard to read. His patterns screamed louder than his muscles did. He thrived on attention, every glance in the mirror, every laugh that rang a little too loud, every story about pushing limits, told to a client gasping for air under his supervision. He needed the audience. Without it, he was just another young man afraid of being ordinary. Diana fell right into that orbit. And why wouldn't she? Jake was 25. Youthful, sculpted, with a body that advertised possibilities she no longer felt in her own skin. He fed her flattery, sprinkled with just enough false sincerity to make it addictive. You've still got it, he probably told her. Most women your age can't keep up like this. Words designed to stroke both her vanity and her fear of fading. He was offering her a mirror that reflected not who she was, but who she wanted to believe she still could be. And me. In Jake's eyes, I was the obstacle. Older. Steadier. The inconvenient reminder that time comes for everyone. Men like him need villains to validate their illusions of heroism, and I'd been cast in that role the moment Diana introduced us. But here's the fatal mistake Jake made, the one young predators always make. He thought the battlefield was physical. He thought muscles were weapons. He thought youth was armor. What he didn't understand is that discipline will break strength. Patience will break speed. And experience will break youth every single time. Jake was a boy playing at being a man. And me. I'd spent 12 years watching real men die. The gym thought tonight was going to be a show. They didn't realize it was about to become a lesson. The thing about gyms is, they're never just about iron and sweat. They're theaters. Everyone who walks in carries a script they want others to see. Some lift to impress. Some run to escape. Some pose to be admired. And some, like me, watch. That night, the air had weight to it. I felt it the second Jake squared his chest toward me, grinning like a wolf cub that had finally cornered prey. He wanted an audience. He needed it. And in seconds, he had one. The clang of weights dulled. Conversations thinned. One by one, faces turned. A semicircle began to form, people hungry for spectacle. The glow of phone screens flickered on, capturing angles, priming for viral entertainment. No one said it out loud, but everyone understood. Something was about to happen. Jake flexed his arms, every vein popping, sweat slicking his skin into bronze under the fluorescent lights. To them, he looked dangerous. To me, he looked desperate. "Walk out before I embarrass you, old man," he said. His voice carried enough to ensure no one missed it. The crowd ate it up. A ripple of whispers, chuckles. I heard the word savage somewhere in the back. Another voice, "Damn, he's gonna kill that dude." That's what the crowd wanted. A fight. Blood. Proof that youth conquers age. But they didn't understand the stakes. Because this wasn't about strength versus strength. It wasn't even about me versus Jake. This was about Diana. Every glance she gave him, every secret she thought I hadn't noticed, every quiet betrayal that had already set the battlefield long before tonight. And as the circle closed in, I realized something chilling. This wasn't just a gym anymore. This was an arena. And everyone around us wasn't a bystander. They were witnesses. Witnesses to humiliation. Or to something far darker. Jake thought tonight was about proving himself. Diana thought she could hide behind the chaos. The crowd thought they were watching a fight. But me. I knew this was the opening act of something much bigger. Because battles end quickly. But wars? Wars unfold in silence, in shadows, over months, years. And tonight, I was just taking notes. Jake had his fists curled before I even moved. That's how I knew he was already losing. Real fighters don't advertise. They don't puff their chest, don't flare their nostrils, don't telegraph the storm before it comes. Violence, real violence, happens quiet, precise, ruthless. But Jake wanted theater. He wanted a roar before he swung. "Let's go, Grandpa," he barked, bouncing on his heels like some YouTube street brawler. His friends in the back shouted encouragement, phones lifted high. The crowd leaned forward, pupils wide, feeding off the scent of conflict. And Diana. She didn't move. She stood frozen, caught between horror and something darker, curiosity. I saw it in her eyes. She wanted to know who would win. Jake lunged. Too fast, too sloppy. His arm cocked wide, a hook loaded with rage instead of discipline. The crowd gasped, already anticipating impact. That was his mistake. I didn't hit him. I didn't even raise a fist. I stepped inside his strike, pivoted, and let his own momentum carry him off balance. One hand to his chest, the other to his shoulder, redirect, collapse. His body stumbled forward, legs scrambling to find ground that wasn't there. And when he crashed into the mat, the sound was thunder. The crowd erupted. Half laughing, half shocked. Phones shook as they scrambled to capture his humiliation. Jake scrambled up, red-faced, fury boiling hotter than his muscles could contain. "You got lucky, old man," he spat, spittle shining under the lights. But it wasn't luck. It was geometry, physics, discipline. Things Jake had never studied. I didn't need to break him with fists. Not yet. The real damage had already begun. The first crack in his pride, the first seed of doubt in Diana's eyes, the first whisper through the crowd that maybe the old man wasn't prey after all. The first strike wasn't physical. It was psychological. And Jake never even saw it land. Jake shot back to his feet, but it wasn't the smooth recovery of a fighter. It was clumsy, panicked. His sneakers squeaked against the mat, his eyes darting around, not at me, but at them. The crowd. He wasn't thinking about balance, or strategy, or even revenge. He was thinking about the videos. About how he'd look on Instagram tomorrow morning when the clips went live. His jaw tightened, and I could see the shift. This wasn't about beating me anymore. This was about saving face. And that's when men make their biggest mistakes. "Get up, old man," he growled, trying to shake the embarrassment out of his voice. "You think that makes you tough?" I didn't move. I let the silence stretch. The weight of stillness pressed on him harder than any punch could. The crowd whispered, laughed. Someone muttered, "Dude got tossed like a ragdoll." Another, "Bro, he's playing with him." Every word was a dagger to Jake's pride. His nostrils flared. His muscles flexed. He needed to reclaim control, but he couldn't see it slipping faster the harder he fought. Diana finally stepped forward, voice sharp, desperate. "Jake, stop. This isn't worth it." But the problem was, it was. To Jake, it was everything. His identity, his reputation, his illusion of power. And to me, it was the beginning. I saw the crack widen when he tried again. He rushed forward, telegraphing every step. A shoulder charge, reckless and wild. I shifted aside, one palm guiding him past me, his own force dragging him into the wall with a sickening thud. The room gasped. He turned, red, furious, his chest heaving. But his eyes told the truth. Fear. Confusion. The humiliation wasn't just public, it was permanent. The cameras had already captured the collapse. And Diana's face. God, I'll never forget it. She wasn't looking at him with desire anymore. She wasn't even looking at him with pity. She was looking at me. And Jake saw it. That's when I knew the fight was over. Not because Jake was beaten, but because something far worse had happened. His pride had been taken from him, and pride doesn't heal. The gym emptied like a theater after the final act. Some left laughing, shaking their heads, already typing captions for the clips they'd post before midnight. Others left quiet, buzzing with the kind of energy that comes from witnessing something raw. But I could feel it before I saw it. Jake wasn't finished. I walked out into the night air, cool and sharp, the kind of Denver evening that reminds you how thin the sky feels at altitude. The parking lot stretched wide under fluorescent lights, shadows crawling between the cars. Footsteps followed. Heavy. Rushed. "Hey." Jake's voice cracked across the asphalt. I turned. He was storming toward me, chest heaving, eyes bloodshot with rage. No crowd this time. No safety net. Just him, me, and the silence of the night. "You think you embarrassed me in there?" he spat. "That's nothing. You don't know who you're messing with." The words were fire, but his stance gave him away. Shoulders tense, fists trembling, not from power, but from doubt. The bravado that carried him inside was already leaking out here. I didn't answer. I just watched. Silence is a weapon most men never learn to wield. And Jake, he mistook it for weakness. He shoved me. Hard. His palms slammed against my chest, the kind of shove meant to provoke, to force a reaction. But reaction is control surrendered. And I wasn't surrendering anything. I stood still. His shove moved my body an inch. Nothing more. And that's when his fury turned to something else. Something uglier. Fear. Because in his world, every push, every threat, every flex of muscle usually got a reaction. And when it didn't, when the other man just stood there, calm, unshaken, it exposed the truth. Jake wasn't dangerous. He was loud. Behind him, I saw Diana emerge from the gym doors. Her arms crossed tight, face pale in the cold light. She looked at him, then at me. And in that one glance, Jake realized the war was already lost. Not because I beat him in front of a crowd. Not because I refused to break here in the dark. But because Diana had seen both men side by side, and the comparison was killing him more than any punch ever could. He stepped back, his breath fogging in the night. His words faltered, scattered. This isn't over, he muttered. But it was. Because the moment a man says those words, deep down, he knows it already is. The silence in that parking lot stretched thin, like glass about to shatter. Jake was still pacing, still trying to gather fragments of dignity from the ground where I'd left them. But Diana's eyes weren't on him. They were on me. Her gaze lingered too long. Not admiration, not guilt, something heavier. Something that carried history. "Stephen," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. Jake froze. The way she said my name, soft, familiar, cut him deeper than any shove or strike ever could. He turned to her, jaw clenched, voice cracking. Don't talk to him like that. Not in front of me." But she didn't stop. She stepped closer. Not to him. To me. The distance between us was only a few feet, but it felt like a battlefield. The air carried every memory we'd shared, every promise broken, every betrayal buried under the weight of lies. "You shouldn't have come here," she said to me. Her tone was trembling, caught between warning and confession. "You should have stayed away." I searched her face, looking for the woman I once trusted. Instead, I saw something colder, calculation. Jake noticed it too. His voice rose, frantic, desperate. "Diana, what the hell is this? You brought me here to prove something? To humiliate me?" She didn't answer. Her silence was the answer. And that's when the truth hit me harder than any blow Jake could have thrown. Jake wasn't the betrayal. He was the symptom. The betrayal was Diana, the way she'd traded years of loyalty for the thrill of something new, something reckless. The way she watched us tonight, not as a victim caught between two men, but as a woman measuring, comparing, deciding. And the cruelest part? I realized she hadn't chosen Jake out of love. She'd chosen him out of spite. Her voice cracked the night, low and venomous. "You're not the man you used to be, Stephen. You walk around with discipline, control like it means something. But me, I needed more. I needed fire." Jake swallowed hard, waiting for her to claim him. To stand by him. To validate the wreckage she'd caused. But she didn't. Her eyes flicked between us, and in that instant, I understood the depth of her betrayal. She hadn't picked Jake over me. She hadn't picked anyone. She just wanted to watch us destroy each other. And that was worse than any affair. It was war. The truth hit like shrapnel. Diana hadn't chosen love. She hadn't chosen loyalty. She'd chosen chaos. And standing there under the humming floodlights, I finally understood something most men never do. Revenge isn't about striking back in the heat of the moment. It's about patience. About timing. About precision. Jake still hovered near her, lost, furious, humiliated, but irrelevant. He was nothing more than a pawn in someone else's game. The real betrayal stood in front of me, eyes sharp, lips trembling with words she wouldn't say. And I knew then, I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I took one step back. Then, another. No anger. No curses. No promises of violence. Just silence. Because silence carves deeper scars than rage ever could. Jake shouted something behind me. Empty threats, words meant to fill the void where his pride used to be. Diana stayed quiet. She didn't stop me. She didn't run after me. She just watched. And in that silence, I made my vow. Not out loud. Not for them. But for myself. I would not strike tonight. I would not ruin myself with reckless fury. No, when I came for them, it would be slow. Calculated. Surgical. I would dismantle their world the way I dismantled targets in the field. Step by step. Weakness by weakness. Until nothing remained. They thought tonight was the battle. They thought the fight ended here in the parking lot. But tonight wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And neither of them, not Diana, not Jake, had the faintest idea just how long I'd been trained to wait. For men like Jake, humiliation doesn't end when the crowd goes home. It festers. It follows you like a shadow, whispering in every silence, poisoning every glance. By the next morning, the clips were already spreading. Shaky phone footage. Laughter in the background. My calm voice against his shouting. Every replay chipped at him. Every comment carved deeper into his pride. Dude got folded without a punch. Special Forces Steven didn't even need to swing. Big muscles, small presence. The internet is merciless. And Jake, he wasn't built for merciless. Diana tried to soothe him, but even she couldn't hide the truth. Every time her phone buzzed, every time her lips curved at a notification, Jake's paranoia grew sharper. He started watching her differently. Asking questions he hadn't asked before. Why'd you look at him like that? What's he still mean to you? And when she didn't answer, his silence became louder than his words. At the gym, the laughter followed him. Not out loud. No one dared say it to his face. But in whispers, in sidelong glances, in the way respect slipped through his fingers like sand. He trained harder. Lifted heavier. Roared louder. But every rep was tainted by the echo of that night, of me standing still while he broke himself trying to move me. And slowly, the cracks began to show. His temper flared faster. His friends drifted away. His eyes, once cocky and alive, now carried the haunted look of a man replaying his own failure on loop. Because humiliation doesn't just wound a man like Jake. It devours him. And Diana. She wasn't there to pick up the pieces. She was watching too, measuring him, the same way she measured me. And Jake was starting to realize the cruelest truth of all. She didn't want him to win. She just wanted to see him fall. Revenge is never loud in the beginning. It whispers. It slips into cracks. It starts with small moves that no one notices, until it's too late. The morning after, I went back to routine. Training at dawn. Running the same trails I always had. To the outside world, I was calm, unaffected. But beneath the surface, the plan had already begun. Step 1. Information. In the Special Forces, you learn that intelligence is deadlier than any weapon. And Jake? He wasn't hard to read. His ego left footprints everywhere. Social media posts, tagged photos, gym schedules. I mapped his life without lifting a finger. Step 2. Pressure points. A man like Jake doesn't collapse from physical force. He collapses when you take what he values most: reputation, control, and trust. That's where Diana came in. Not directly. Not yet. But through her silence, her hesitation, her wandering eyes that night, she had already planted doubt in Jake's mind. I wouldn't need to fight him again. His paranoia would do most of the work for me. So I fed it. Subtle. Clean. Surgical. A text message left unseen. A rumor whispered in the right ear at the right time. A presence, mine, always nearby but never confrontational. Enough for Jake to notice. Enough for Diana to compare. By the end of that week, I didn't have to raise my hand. Jake was unraveling on his own. And the beauty of it. Neither of them realized yet that the game had already shifted. That every crack forming between them was by design. Because I wasn't planning to destroy Jake alone. I was planning to make Diana watch him collapse, piece by piece, until the man she betrayed me for was nothing but dust at her feet. And when she finally turned back to me, desperate, broken, begging for something solid, that's when she'd learn what real abandonment feels like. Diana was never the type to pick a side. She picked moments. She picked opportunities. And as Jake began cracking under the weight of humiliation, she started shifting in ways only a woman like her could. With Jake, she played the part of the loyal girlfriend. Whispered reassurances. Hands on his arm at the gym. A smile in public that said, "I'm with you." But behind closed doors, the mask slipped. Her eyes lingered on her phone just a little too long. Her answers came a beat too late. Her laughter, sharp, quick, nervous, carried the edge of someone keeping a secret. And Jake felt it. Every hesitation. Every unanswered question. It was the perfect storm. Because while he raged at shadows, Diana was planting seeds. Quiet suggestions. Carefully chosen words. Stephen didn't even touch you, and they're still talking about it. Maybe if you didn't let it get to you so much, people would forget. You're stronger than him, aren't you? Every line was a blade disguised as comfort. Every word twisted deeper into Jake's insecurities. And yet, when she crossed paths with me, her tone changed. She didn't avoid me. She didn't confront me. She lingered. A glance too long in the grocery store aisle. A pause before starting her car when I happened to walk by. The kind of silence that wasn't silence at all. It was invitation. She was playing both sides, testing the ground. Feeding Jake's paranoia while keeping me in her orbit. Because Diana didn't want stability. She wanted fire. She wanted to stand in the middle of two men burning for her and watch who survived the flames. What she didn't realize is that I wasn't burning anymore. I was planning. And in my plan, she wasn't fire. She was fuel. Reputation is fragile. You don't need to break it outright. You just need to nudge it, and gravity will do the rest. At first, it was just laughter behind Jake's back at the gym. A few smirks when he walked into the locker room. The kind of silence that fills a space when everyone knows something you don't. Then came the whispers. Did you see the video? Stephen didn't even touch him. Man, all those muscles and he still couldn't move him. I heard Diana was looking at Stephen the whole time. None of it had to be true. All it had to do was spread. And it spread fast. I didn't push. I didn't need to. A quiet word at the right moment, a passing comment in the right ear. It was enough to keep the fire alive. By the second week, Jake's name wasn't said without mine attached to it. Not as a rival, but as a shadow. He couldn't escape me, even when I wasn't there. His workouts got louder, more desperate. He slammed weights down hard enough to draw stares. He picked fights with friends just for looking at him wrong. And the worst part for him. Diana wasn't defending him. Not once. When the whispers reached her, she didn't argue. She didn't tell people to shut up. She just laughed. Soft. Like she wanted to believe the rumors but wouldn't admit it. That laugh cut deeper than anything I could have done with my fists. Because Jake didn't fear me in the ring anymore. He feared me in her eyes. And the more he fought against the whispers, the louder they became. Because humiliation doesn't fade when you resist it. It multiplies. Paranoia doesn't creep in quietly. It comes crashing, loud, frantic, desperate. Jake had been holding it together with clenched fists and forced grins. But by the third week, the facade shattered. It started small. He snapped at a friend in the locker room for mentioning my name. He stormed out of a gym session halfway through, leaving weights clattering behind him. But Diana saw the worst of it. Late one night, neighbors heard shouting through their walls. Jake's voice, raw, jagged, cut through the quiet. "Don't lie to me, Diana. I saw the way you looked at him. You think I don't notice? Every time his name comes up, you go quiet. Every damn time." Her replies were soft, careful, calculated. Jake, you're imagining things. You're letting him live in your head. But her tone wasn't convincing, it was deliberate. Because the more calm she sounded, the more unhinged he became. And then came the mistake. He broke a glass. Not by accident. Not dropped. Thrown. Shards scattered across the kitchen floor, reflecting the man he was becoming. Diana didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at him with those cold, measuring eyes. The kind of stare that doesn't say, "I'm afraid of you." It says, "You've already lost me." Jake froze, realizing it too late. He wasn't fighting Stephen anymore. He was fighting a ghost, an image of me living inside her mind. And in that moment, the strongest man in the room wasn't the one holding the broken glass. It was the one who didn't even have to be there. A soldier knows when to strike. Not when the enemy is strongest, but when he's bleeding out, scrambling, blind with rage. Jake was unraveling. The whispers owned him. Diana's silence carved him open. And me. I hadn't even laid a hand on him. That was the beauty of it. He was fighting shadows, and I was the one holding the light. So I escalated. Quietly. Calculated. At the gym, I didn't mock him. I didn't even look his way. I congratulated other lifters. I offered tips. I built trust. And every smile I gave to someone else felt like a knife twisting deeper into Jake's chest, because he wasn't getting it. I knew men like him. Their strength was only as real as the attention it commanded. Take away the audience, and all that muscle was just dead weight. But I wasn't finished. One evening, I let Diana see me help a younger guy with his form. Nothing intimate. Nothing obvious. Just patience. Authority. Control. And she smiled. Not at me, but at what Jake could never be. The look on her face said everything Jake feared. And I didn't have to say a word. Because revenge isn't about fists or fury. It's about pressure. Applied slow. Precise. Until the cracks give way. And Jake? He was already breaking. Diana was never just a spectator. She knew how to watch, how to measure, how to wait. When Jake shouted, she didn't flinch. When he broke the glass, she didn't beg. She simply let silence do what fists never could. Turn a strong man into something small. But silence wasn't her only weapon. She had something sharper. Timing. She began to laugh at the wrong moments. Subtle, cutting, deliberate. Not cruel enough to accuse, not kind enough to comfort. Just enough to make Jake wonder. Who are you laughing at? Me, or him? At the gym, she didn't need to approach me. All she had to do was stand close enough that Jake thought she might. Her hand brushing her hair when I passed. Her eyes lingering a second too long when I spoke. None of it was proof. But paranoia doesn't need proof. It feeds on maybes. And Diana was serving him a feast. She wasn't in love with me. She wasn't loyal to Jake. She was loyal only to herself. And to the feeling of power that came with watching two men circle each other like wolves. She didn't need to choose a side. She just had to fan the fire. Because the longer the fire burned, the more control she had over the ashes. And in the war between Jake and me, she was learning to be the quiet victor. It happened on a Friday night. The gym was packed, music pounding, weights slamming, the air thick with sweat and ego. I was spotting a younger lifter when I felt it. That heat. That stare. Jake. He wasn't lifting. He wasn't training. He was just watching me, jaw tight, veins pulsing at his temple. And then Diana walked in. The room shifted. Not because of her beauty, though heads turned. But because Jake's world was suddenly standing at the door, choosing where to look. And she looked at me. Not long. Not obvious. Just enough. Jake snapped. He stormed across the floor, shoving people aside, his voice cutting through the music. You think you're better than me, old man? You think she doesn't tell me? You think I don't know what you're doing? The gym went silent. Dozens of eyes turned. I stood up slow, steady. Not defensive. Not aggressive. Just calm. Jake, I said quietly. You need to walk away. But he couldn't. His pride was already bleeding out on that floor. He shoved me. Hard. Gasps rippled through the room. And that was the moment he lost. Because I didn't hit back. Didn't even raise my hands. I just looked at him, calm, unshaken, untouchable. To everyone watching, Jake wasn't the strong man anymore. He was the out-of-control kid throwing a tantrum. And Diana. She didn't rush to stop him. She didn't defend him. She just watched. Smiling. And Jake's humiliation wasn't measured in bruises. It was measured in silence. The silence of an entire gym staring at him. And realizing he wasn't who he wanted them to believe. Jake didn't come back to the gym the next day. Or the next week. His outburst had spread faster than any workout tip. People whispered when his name came up. Not about his strength. Not about his dedication. But about how he snapped, how he shoved a man who never lifted a fist in return. Respect is a currency. Jake had spent his last coin. Meanwhile, I went back to training, calm as ever. No gloating. No talk. Because in war, you don't shout about your victories. You let the silence crown you. People still whisper at the gym. But now, when they glance my way, it isn't fear in their eyes. It's respect. Because they saw what happens when a man with patience takes on a man with pride. Pride cracks. Pride bleeds. Pride dies. But patience. Patience always wins. And in the end, I didn't need to embarrass Jake. He did it all by himself.